has been to the World Water Week? Okay, how many hands? Not, yeah, maybe 20% of the room, if I'm optimistic, but that's good. I am happy to let you know that this World Water Week in 2022 will be hybrid. So you will have the option to go to Stockholm, but you will also have the option to follow it online. And I have prepared a presentation that will accompany my speech, and I see it here. And first, before we dive into water diplomacy, which I think sometimes is considered the elephant in the room. We use that word a lot. We talk about it a lot, water diplomacy. But very often we actually ask ourselves what it actually is, what it can do for me, and what it can do, most importantly, for transboundary basins. And I would like to remind us of something that I've heard a very long time ago. Actually, when I was conducting my research for my PhD, I lived in Muslim Mindanao in the Philippines. And that there we often heard, because that conflict had so many different agreements, many different agreements, but very few agreements were implemented. And I would like us to think about it in the context of water world. How many agreements we have and how many of them are actually being implemented. And always remember, it is really not the destination, but it's the journey. And water diplomacy, it's our journey that gets us to our destination. So I would like to urge us, let's not think and focus only about signing agreements. Let's also really think and focus on building relations or creating inclusive processes and connecting different tracks. And if we should dive into water diplomacy, 3 very important elements here. We see that we do not have one-size-fits-all approach. We do have international water law that provides very important framework, but every transboundary basin is unique. Every dispute over shared waters, let it be on a community level, national level, or transnational level, is unique. And we really have to think like this. We always have to learn about the context. If we are supporting the parties as a facilitator, if we have a different role, we have to remember that water diplomacy, it's not a universal blueprint that offers universal solutions. It always has to be contextualized. And the other important thing is that we have to also look for solution outside of the water basin, outside of the water sector. And I'm very happy to see in the water community at different meetings, like here, Cairo Water Week, but also in Stockholm, and many other water meetings. We see increasingly more and more people coming from other sectors. We see more people who are experts on finance. We also do see colleagues who work with conflict resolution, who works with facilitation, who focus more on long-term development, and who also who understand how to really build a political will. So it is important, and I would say that especially in this basin, in Nile River Basin, it's extremely connected to solution outside of the water sector. We really need to think about financial infrastructure. We need to think about support for different processes. And it is not only about finding a water solution. It is important to connect it to different tracks. Here, many people would object, and I know many colleagues object. They said, this only politicizes the processes. If you bring in the other sector, if you try to engage political security actors, this will only add additional burden to these processes. What I would like to say, let's think how we can build political will without politicizing the issue. And this is really the problem. This is the big challenge. And the other thing is that it's people who are in the center. People are in the center of water diplomacy. We need to build inclusive processes. We need to think about gender equality. We need to think about youth engagement. I'm very proud to say that my organization, Stockholm International Water Institute, is a very works with different networks of women in water diplomacy. One in the Nile River Basin, and another one is being built together with our partners, CAREC, an Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, in Central Asia, including Afghanistan. And we work on How do we bring women together who work on these issues to create these networks where we can share experience? So this is very important to look into connections between people. So people are in the center of water diplomacy. But this is all very nice, and I also think that everything that many of my previous speakers said, this is all, we all agree we need to cooperate. We all agree that we need to find ways to build bridges and build relations. But the main question, and this is what everybody is asking, how can we do this? How? We know that very soon, 40% of population in Transboundary Basin will live in water-stressed countries. So this is it will become a bigger and bigger issue. So we really need to find a more effective solutions. How can we work better together? And that's why, from my perspective, I would like to now talk about the engagement of external actors in sustainable dialogues. And here, three things I would like to stress. First, we really need to think about process design. How do we involve actors? How do we think who is in the room and who should be in the room? Who decides about this? It is the stakeholders. It is the countries who are making these very difficult decisions, making very difficult compromises, and they really need to think about the way how do we design the process. Is the process sustainable? Is everybody who can make a decision, is that group engaged? Do we think about the marginalized groups? Do we, for example, think about small-scale farmers who will be affected by these problems? Do we have really everybody in the room? Is the process inclusive? Who is the external actor? Are we really working with the best possible actor who can really deliver, who can really build the right platform? And then we also do need to think about these linkages between political and technical tracks. And I think in the water community, we have all the solutions. We really know. I think if we would ask, and I check this with my colleagues, if we would ask only technical experts to find a solution to the dispute or to the situation in the Nile River Basin, they have all the solutions. What is difficult is how to bring the political will to really implement this. And so it's really about the connection between finding political will for the technical solutions. And there are different ways how this can be done. And this is really about carefully designed process. We really need to think, who do we need to engage? Who do we need to have these in these rooms? Do we need to have, for example, a parallel process, which will provide a safe space when actors can really talk about these possible disagreements and also talk about benefits, really understand what are the benefits of cooperation. We always use this as a buzzword. This will be shared benefit, but very often we don't have the space to really discuss what this will mean, what kind of shared benefit, who will benefit, what this will bring to different people. And this is very important that we do have the right platforms for these types of discussions. And then the last part, and this is something that is also extremely important, is really how do we communicate this? How do we get the public on our side? Somebody mentioned here, it's very difficult for upstream countries, for example, to get public support for compromises with downstream countries. There is a lot of disinformation about these issues. It's very difficult for those who negotiate because often they have an opposition, public sentiment against them. It's very, very difficult to be a politician who is in this position. And now with the influx of disinformation campaigns, fake news, when we also, as you can compare it to what's happening with the climate change, how much disinformation we have about climate change. It's really the same about different water processes. It's very difficult to get these very complex scientific studies to the public. It's much easier to write, there will be water war. This is a very catchy headline. It's very easy to publish something like this. It's much more difficult to say, this is a very complex studies. How can we share benefits of water cooperation? So we need to really think about strategic communication. We really need to think, how can we talk to the public about this? How can we explain to the public that we benefit from this? How can we explain to the public the challenges that are coming, the uncertainty about the climate change impacts? So, and often technical experts and engineers, sometimes it can be that they can struggle with a certain type of communication. This is very difficult. This needs a new set of skills that we need to bring to these processes. Somebody who will advise how can we communicate about success, and how can we also communicate about the need to do a compromise in many of the processes. Diplomacy is really the art of compromise. And so when engaging different third-party actors, there are also many different roles. I know here in the context of the Nile River Basin, we often hear about the facilitators. We know about the very important role the African Union is playing in these processes. We also know that there are several observers. But when we think about the process, when we think about process design, there is a lot of room for involvement of additional actors. Aside of a dialogue facilitator, and later we will talk about the different types of mandates, we also have for somebody who can help with independent assessment studies. There is a different space for all these possible impartial experts, joint fact-finding missions, and agreement monitoring. What is important, that all these different roles, that is connected. We do not have to have one actor who covers everything. We have to think who is best placed to do what. So here is a little checklist. When thinking about engaging an external partner, external party, third party, this is what we should think about. Why is this third party? And a third party, it can be a state, it can be multilateral organization, it can be regional organization, it can be an individual, it can be an NGO, it can be a think tank. It's a very wide group. Think about why is this external actor interested to be involved in this process? What are the motivations? And it is the stakeholders, it is the countries or the groups that are negotiating that decide about this, that should ask these questions. They should also know what are the expectations. What do I expect from the third party? What do I expect them to deliver? And what are their interests? And then we should also ask, can they deliver this? What is their capacity? For example, if we are asking somebody to do a technical study, do they have the right capacity? Would they maybe be better suited for something else? Do they also have the means to deliver this? These are very important questions. And remember, we can always create a group of external actors who can cover these different roles. And at the end, we also have to ask what kind of mandate we give them. And it's always the negotiating parties who give the mandate to the third party. You can decide what kind of level of engagement is expected for the third party. And there are different ranges. You know that it's a good offices, it's facilitator, mediator, we can even have arbiter. But it is up to the negotiating parties to really thoroughly think what kind of external actor we wish to engage. And often it is very difficult it is a first step in the negotiation to really, if the parties who are negotiating decide to engage a third party, to really think about this. And then also think about the resources. If we are engaging a smaller actor, maybe a non-state actor, do they have the right resources to carry through everything that we are expecting? So this is just something that we've been thinking about. I think it is very important to bringing this perspective that we learn from dialogue facilitation into the context of water, and really think, if we think about the water sector as a very diverse animal, that everybody who is part of that diverse animal has a very big role to play in water diplomacy. They just need to know where to fit in. And I think that is my main message. Everybody has a big role to contribute. We just have to find the right track. So thank you.
Everybody has a role to play. We have to find the right partner. Good way to conclude. We've got a good lesson on water diplomacy. I like the beginning that he said that peace is 10% agreement and 90% implementation. These are the challenges. In Africa, we have 63 river basins. We have 14 protocols. And how many are implemented to the fullest? And one thing you said also, no one size fits all. The river basin all have their different characteristics. You go to the Congo Basin, it's too much water. What you do there is different from what you go in Lipta to Guruma. in the Sahel is different. Also, it should be people-centered. Anything we do, any development should be people-centered. One important thing that you said is that we are talking about how to do diplomacy, and diplomacy is all about compromises. It's all about compromises. Therefore, we should be able to know not to follow our own interests, but compromise. These are very important takeaway. You know, have a lot of these agreements. But important thing that 40% of transboundary countries, you know, like all agreements cooperate. 40% of transboundary because are in water stress countries. That's important. Well, if you are water stressed, you are bound to cooperate. You know, sometimes we don't have a choice. It's nature that forces us to cooperate. Water came from the mountains all the way to the ocean, passing through. There were no boundaries. People naturally cooperated. We came and put artificial boundaries, but we are forced to cooperate. It's very important. We should take that home with us. That to get to our destiny, let's use the platform of hydro diplomacy. It will take us where we want to do. There are a lot of takeaway from what you have said. I thank you very much, and hope that next Stockholm Water Week will be physical. We missed, so we'll come in full. But one other important thing is that we should think outside of the box. Let or get other sectors. That's the biggest challenge. Anywhere we go on water, it's changing slowly. I see the same people. Sometimes it's just like the tennis circuit. Today they're in New York. Next time they're in roller garros. Paris Open. Next time they're going to Australia. When one player absent, you say, oh, this one is absent. Here also, we are here. We are just from Dusan Bay. We are just from Dubai. We are going. And sometimes you look, somebody say, oh, I'm coming from Sudan. I say, you're from Sudan. Where's Dr. Hannah? We haven't seen Dr. Hannah. So to get out of the box is very difficult. We have been so into sector. The first time I went to climate change and when they talk about water, that was in Denmark. You know what they told me? You water people, you have your Stockholm, you have your World Water Forum, you know, you have everything. Leave us alone. We have nothing but COP. Don't come to COP and disturb us. You'll be a burden. You'll bring another negotiation. So to bring the different sectors, COP is just coming. You know, in Edinburgh, it only climate, people, and environment, and less than 1% on water. So we need to integrate. Because otherwise, we'll be talking to ourselves. I always said, you know, those who go to church, don't tell that person about Jesus Christ. He goes to church. Tell it to the guy in the bar. So we here, we don't need to tell you about water because you are the converted. We need to bring the finance people and others there. That brings me to my next speaker, who is a good friend we have met many years ago, Dr. Hannah El Amin Muhdatir Al Hassan from Sudan. You know, lives in Khartoum, got a BSc in General Oceanography, Master's in Strategic Studies, and PhD degree in Strategics and Security Studies. She's an activist. I know her in the NGO sector, and ANU, that's the African Water Environment Organization. She's an activist in research, environment strategy studies, and marine specialist. She's been to many, many meetings, you know, be it UN and non-UN. She's been there raising the flag for the people I call the non-state actors. Because we who represent the state, we go there, we have guidelines, we speak within boundaries. We cannot go outside of that boundary because that's the government policy. So it's the civil society that they speak the truth and put us on the line, say, you committed to this as government, you sign this, but you are not implementing. That's why your view is very important. We are from Sudan, at the middle there between Ethiopia and Egypt, and you are sharing the Nile and with other countries. What is your take on this topic?